dark pursuit. In the cold, shadowy corridors of the police station, George walked anxiously amidst the silent commotion of his colleagues. The city was struggling to cope with the recent string of brutal murders. Each murder was more complex and horrifying than the last, and the police officers pursuing the killer were getting drawn into an increasingly dark world. One evening, George and his team finally found a lead. The last traces of the killer pointed to an old, abandoned building. As they ventured deeper into the dark premises, George felt a growing unease. The walls were adorned with satanic symbols and fresh bloodstains. George's breath trembled. He could sense that this killer was not human. Suddenly, the silence was shattered, and the killer emerged as if born from the shadows. He seemed to glide like black smoke, and bullets had no effect on him. As George looked into the killer's eyes, they bore into his soul. This couldn't be a human. This had to be a supernatural entity. The police officers retreated helplessly, trying every escape route, but the killer closed in with every step. In the midst of this horrifying moment, George felt something snap inside him. A colleague fell victim to the killer's hands, tragically losing their life. Others watched in despair as this tragedy unfolded before their eyes. On the walls of the station, they discovered that the killer's spirit was tied to a gruesome crime committed years ago in this very building. Once a home to an innocent family, it had become a place where the spirit sought vengeance. In the final scene, at the funeral of their fallen comrades, George sensed that the spirit still lingered among them. His eyes reflected fear and regret. This terrifying tale concluded with a tragedy at the end of a deadly pursuit, haunted by a supernatural entity. After facing the horror and the supernatural being, terrifying memories took root in George's mind, disturbing him repeatedly. Many of his nights had turned into nightmares, and in those nightmares the killer's face kept shifting like swirling black smoke. When he returned to the police station, he started feeling like a stranger among his colleagues. Every shadow during night patrols felt like a threat, and every corner seemed to revive the horrors of the past. George struggled with psychological distress for weeks. Sleepless nights and nightmares were slowly breaking him down. His colleagues approached him with worried looks, but facing the terror within was proving to be a challenge. Eventually, George couldn't take it anymore and handed in his resignation. His career in the police force came to an end, a tragedy for both him and his colleagues. He left behind the duty of protecting the city, but fear and paranoia never let go of him. He retreated to a quiet house in a distant town. However, his dark past still haunted him. Every night, the ghost of the killer entered his dreams, never allowing him peace. George's life had changed completely. Once a man who proudly wore the badge of a police officer, he was now a shadow. Lost in the narrative of a story, his soul had not found solace, and perhaps the end of these terrifying events was not in sight. The terror and the supernatural being had driven George to the brink, and he had completely lost his mind. Now, he was both the hunter and the hunted. The townspeople began to fear George's increasingly strange behavior. Children avoided his house, and adults claimed to hear strange sounds and witness bizarre rituals in the dead of night. The town sheriff, concerned about George's condition, paid him a visit, but all he found was George manically laughing and punching holes in the walls. One night, the town authorities finally managed to apprehend George, chaining him. They sent him to a mental institution. George was now only chasing a ghost, and his connection to the real world had been severed completely. The townspeople felt relief, as if their nightmares had come to an end. But they would never forget the horrific events of George's past. This story tells of a man who was once a police officer, descending into madness at the end of a terrifying journey. Thank you for watching. Now, I will tell you about real-life supernatural events. I will be organizing and making videos about truly experienced paranormal incidents. Stay tuned. Don't miss the videos. Be prepared to be scared. Ghostly grim.